We have with us the chairman of the Georgia GOP, Josh McKoon. Josh, how we doing? We have about 10 minutes here in this segment, so a lot of time. Give us the analysis bit by bit. You and I have been texting. What are we seeing out of the beautiful state of Georgia?
So really good numbers. Again, today, over 100,000 people have voted as of noon. For people listening in Georgia, it's not too late if you haven't already voted. If you're in line this afternoon, you'll be allowed to stay until you vote. But we're continuing to track a significant lead, a 75, 80,000 vote lead, we believe, for President Trump in the early and absentee voting together. If we have a significant lead at the end of the day today and normal election day turnout, we should be in good shape. We should be on track. But the only way that's going to happen is if Republicans continue to turn out in large numbers. We've got a lot of the votes we need. A lot of people came out early and banked their votes. I'd say we're at the 10-yard line, but it's going to take those election day voters to put us over the top, put us in the end zone, and make sure that our 16 electoral votes go for President Trump.
So let's go through this. Let's compare and contrast parts of the state and early voting with 2020. So first, tell us the story that was in 2020 and then what we are seeing today.
So what we saw in 2020 was very significant turnout in the Black community. For a Democrat to win statewide here in Georgia, you generally need 30% of the overall vote to be Black voters, and then that Democrat needs to get over 90% of that vote. Here in 2024, we're sitting on about 26% of the total vote are Black voters. So you're not seeing places like Clayton County, Georgia, Albany, Georgia, turn out with the same enthusiasm that they turned out 4 years ago. By contrast, rural Georgia, really the base and bedrock of the Republican Party here in Georgia, is turning out in incredible numbers. I believe Towns County, Georgia, up in the North Georgia mountains, is the highest turnout county in America right now. Almost 70% of all registered voters in Towns County have voted. And they're not alone. You know, we're seeing that all over the state. 24 of the top 25 state House districts for turnout are held by Republicans. The top 5 congressional districts for turnout are held by Republicans. So what we're seeing is an enthusiasm gap that was not there in 2020. And of course, we can't just bank on that. We've got to make sure our people continue to turn out in very big numbers. So that's the big story right now, is we're not seeing that heavy turnout in the Democratic leaning areas, but very heavy turnout in rural Georgia, in ex-urban areas around Atlanta, Columbus, Augusta, and Macon that all trend Republican.
So let me ask you, Josh, what is the number? What is the magic number that we need to hit on Election Day?
So we're looking, if we end today with about 4 million, which is where I think we're going to be, we're going to be looking for an Election Day turnout in excess of 1 million. That Election Day turnout should be more Republican than the early voting and absentee voting, and should put a significant distance between President Trump and Vice President Harris if we get that turnout on Election Day. So what I'm looking for is that we get over 1 million, that we crest the 5 million total vote mark. I think if we do that, it's going to be a good night for us, an early night for us here in Georgia.
Blake, would you like to chime in for a second?
So I guess just a natural question a lot of people are asking, Josh, is we have seen that the Election Day vote is more Republican in past elections, but a lot of that was because we weren't doing early voting. Now we are. Is there a particular reason that we are optimistic that the Election Day vote will tilt Republican as it has in the past?
That's a great question. So almost 20% of the people that have turned out in this election so far in Georgia did not vote in the 2020 election. Over 600,000 votes out of the roughly 4 million that'll probably be cast by the end of the day today, probably closer to 700,000 if that trend continues. So those obviously are not voters that voted on Election Day in 2020. So we're not cannibalizing that Election Day vote. The last time I looked, it's about 8.5% of the early voters are voters, Republican modeled voters, that voted early this time that voted Election Day in 2020. So about 91% of our Election Day voters are available for Election Day, which is why I'm optimistic that our election day turnout is going to look very similar to how it's looked in previous election cycles.
So that's great news. I think Blake touched on this, but is there no cannibalization fear, Josh? You guys have a lot left on the shelf. Is that right?
That's exactly right. We have a lot left to go. We've got a lot of new voters that voted in this election. We have a lot of people that voted absentee 4 years ago because, of course, we were dealing with COVID that have transferred to early in-person voters. So we haven't really seen that much election day voters moving to early voting. Some, but not significant. 9 in 10 of our election day voters are still available. On the Democrat side of the equation, Black female voters have turned out in very significant numbers, while Black male voters have largely been staying at home. That's what's been depressing the Black vote. So we're going into Election Day, I believe, with an energized population of voters who are ready to turn out. They want to turn out on Election Day. It's what they do. And with Democrats approaching a ceiling. So again, this is all dependent on us successfully turning the vote out. That's why I'm going to Gainesville, Georgia tomorrow, Hall County, to chase votes with the Turning Point team. We're going to run through the tape over the next 4 days because we have to keep pushing our people to the polls. Again, I'm optimistic, but that optimism is fueled by a belief that we are going to be able to successfully turn out these people and crest that 5 million voter mark on Tuesday.